Hello, this is Mark Sabatella from Outside Shore Music. In this video, I'm going to return to the subject of Schumann's Scenes from Childhood, the first movement. I did a bit of an analysis of the main melody of this piece a couple weeks ago, and just focused on the first 8 bars. That melody we hear twice, and then it happens again at the end. But that's almost the whole piece, but there's just a few bars in the middle that didn't get covered, so why not? Let's talk about those, because there's a couple interesting things about them. So first of all, let me just refresh your memory. I'm going to play those first 8 bars so we can hear that, or let MuseScore.com play it. So that's the first 8. Now let's hear the middle section here. And then back to that melody. So, what's different about this? Well, there's a couple things. Right off the bat, you hear, it's gone from being very clearly in G major to being maybe in E minor, right? We hear in the key of E minor, that would be 1 to 4. And then maybe a deceptive resolution to G major. Not even deceptive. This is the D chord going to G. So we hear something that sounds like E minor. And we think we're in E minor, but suddenly we're kind of really in G major. Then we hear this. Okay. Oh yeah, we really are in E minor. And then we're back to G major. So he teases us with E minor by starting off that section in E minor, but then immediately resolving to G major. Then he gives us another thing that, hey, he's kind of resolved to E minor. He's even given us this dominant here, the B chord going to E minor, but then he resolves it to G major. So he doesn't really give us the E minor. He teases us with it. That's the best word I can think of for it. But what's a little odd to me is, well, that's a 4-bar phrase, and that seems fine. But then the next section here is, it's really only 2 bars long. Whoops. That's just 2 bars. So we have a 4-bar phrase plus a 2-bar phrase, like a 6-bar middle section. So it's a little odd length there, right? It doesn't have that symmetry of 4 plus 4, which is what, much music in the world, maybe most music, works out that way. And certainly the first phrase worked out 4 bars plus 4 bars. So this is a little bit odd in that second phrase is only 2 bars. And then it's also odd to me, that whole teasing of the E minor thing, is especially unusual to me in that each of these, like this little 2 bars, that ends on a G chord, right? And then again a G chord, and then it's going to a G chord again. He keeps coming back to that G chord every couple of bars. It's kind of a lot of G. For someone who's trying to tease us with E minor, he's really, really telling us about G a lot. So to me, it makes that middle section feel a little oddly unsettled. No individual measure is necessarily unsettled, but the way that whole 6 bars comes together, it almost feels like, I don't know, he trailed off mid-sentence, or something feels a little, I don't know, not like the completed thought, and it feels like there's something that might have been there that isn't there. That's the best way I can describe it. So it's really interesting to me, because obviously Schumann intended exactly this, or he wouldn't have put it down there. It's not like this was a scrap of paper published posthumously or something. But it's just interesting to me. That middle section is quite quirky in that way. in stark contrast to the main melody, which I was pointing out is such a textbook example of kind of classic structuring of the melody and the harmony. Everything about it is just really so classic. Whereas this middle section is really quirky on really a number of levels. And I didn't even talk about that last chord. It almost feels like there's a wrong note in this chord. I said it ends on a G chord, but what's this A doing there? I had to check and make sure that wasn't a typo, check some other editions. It's not. What's really happening is a G, and then this is basically a D7 chord. He's basically giving us the 1 chord and then the 5 back to 1. But he's letting these 2 notes continue to sound while he sets up that 5 chord. So that's how I would look at it. You could look at it that way harmonically, or you could talk about voice leading wise. That G goes to the A, goes to that B, and there's a voice leading aspect of it also. But in any case, it's certainly an interesting choice that, maybe catches you off guard a little bit the first time you encounter it. So again, just a lot of things about this middle section are interesting, a little off the beaten path, and creating some tension in a way which you kind of expect maybe the middle section of a piece to do, and this one does it through some really interesting treatment of the harmony and the phrasing, in contrast again to the really standard main melody.